here at the University of Aberdeen, and today we are in a quite windy today, but we are in the Cruikshank Garden, one of the gem of our campus that has been here for more than a century now. As you may know, the United Nations has set 17 goals for the world to be met by 2030, and these goals are for us to try to live a more sustainable life. They are called, as the name indicates, Sustainable Development Goals, and the plan is really to find ways for us to accommodate our growth, accommodate our activities and our industries in a way that is going to be providing a prosperous life in an equitable way for everyone, but also finding new ways to kind of do all of this within the boundaries of our planet, so not using too much our planet. So I really wanted today to talk to you about the fantastic work we are doing here at the University of Aberdeen, and we have been doing for several decades now, to try to help people achieve those goals. How do we find these sustainable solutions? I'm going to be taking a little journey in the garden with you, talking with 3 people, and I'm going to talk with these people on all these different goals and how they connect to one another, how these goals are interconnected, how we might talk about sociology, and how we might talk about biology, and actually we're meeting some very common goals. So we're going to start, if you don't mind, with Saul Milne here that's waiting for us. Saul is a PhD student that has been working with orangutan in Borneo for a few years now, and I wanted to really catch up with him because he's been doing some fantastic work with this species. How are you doing, Saul?
Good. How are you?
Good to meet you again. So I see you're playing with your drones.
Yeah, yeah, good weather for it. But yeah, trying to get some new techniques for the field.
Excellent. Yeah. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the work you're doing in Borneo?
Yeah, sure. So we're using drones because orangutans are affected by land use change. So it's a very large-scale problem. So drones are useful because we're able to cover a very large area in a very short time.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And it's able to get a lot of data. So yeah, very handy that way.
So why orangutan? What's so important?
Well, it's interesting because usually these studies focus on the really charismatic species, but in this case, actually, it's useful because ecologically, all its ecological requirements for a habitat cover a very wide range of animals as well. So if you focus on conservation of orangutans, we're actually essentially conserving a very large number of different species. So they're very useful for conservation purposes by focusing on them.
So actually they bear their name really well, the people of the forest, because
exactly,
they are actually those people that if we protect the whole forest.
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah.
So what kind of problems are they facing in Borneo?
Well, it's mainly large-scale land use change. So, I mean, the main issue is oil palm production. So the timber is felled, forests are cleared, and then oil palm is produced. So I think over the past more than 100 years, about 70% of the forest in Borneo has been logged in order to provide for palm oil cultivation. However, Sabah, the area where I work in North Borneo, it's actually very useful. It's kind of leading by example because it's dedicated 30% of the land cover, the forest cover, to be Class 1 protected forest.
Okay.
And actually, some of that forest is coming out of the project we're working on at the moment. The University of Aberdeen working with the UNDP program to protect this habitat.
All right. So essentially, it's trying to find a way for people to still carry out their work, but at the same time make sure that the orangutan can be around.
Exactly. We're learning that it's more of a mosaic system. They're humans, human habitat and orangutan habitat, and we're trying to figure out a way we can reduce human-wildlife conflict whilst protecting orangutan habitat, and that's kind of what we're trying to research at the moment.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for that. So I can't resist. We've got a drone. I know you've got a lot of footage. Is there a way for us to maybe see some of Saul's footage before we move on to Jenny? Thanks a lot. Right, good to see you. See you. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the video. The good thing about Scotland's weather, as you saw, it was a bit rainy, so we moved into the greenhouse to be a bit protected, sheltered from the rain. The good thing about a lot of rain, we get to eat chocolate along the way without any feeling guilty of any form. So, and this is also quite a useful piece of information. A lot of what we just saw, the palm oil, is used to make this. Okay, so your favorite chocolate tricks and chips will contain some palm oil. And as you know, chocolate is not, is also a bit problematic for our health. It's good to enjoy it, but not too much. So I thought, given all these issues, it'd be quite useful to talk with Jenny, who's a professor of sustainable nutrition and health, and she can tell us a little bit more about some of these issues. Hello Jenny, how are you?
Very well,
good to see you.
Yes, you too.
Yeah, it's lovely. So I was talking about chocolate. Yes. Just before we were talking with Saul about the issues around making some space for palm oil productions, and he was mentioning that a lot of our reason we need to expand palm oil production is because there's a lot of demand, particularly from developed countries. Mm-hmm. I know you've worked a lot on a lot of these different issues. So you worked on the issues about environmental impact of our nutrition, as well as health impacts. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about it?
Yes, well, palm oil is a great example. It's not very healthy. That's the first thing.
Sorry,
and obviously it has a big environmental impact, as you've already heard. Yeah. And I think what's absolutely critical here when we're talking about food is to bring these areas together. What we're growing has an impact on health, it has an impact on climate change, it has an impact on water, on land, etc. And I think this is what's really important, particularly around sustainable development goals, that we really bring these areas together so we don't end up doing one thing in one setting for one particular benefit and find it has a negative effect in somewhere else.
So what are the main issues with our diet at the moment, both in terms of health and environment, in a place like the UK, for example?
In the UK, we've got a diet that's unhealthy and unsustainable in terms of the environment. So in terms of the environment, we have a very high intake of meat, and livestock obviously has a huge impact on the environment. Too much red meat also has health implications. So these two sort of come together quite nicely as a single message. There are some things where it's a little bit different, so we might have foods that are very unhealthy, like sugar, but maybe have less of an environmental impact compared to livestock.
Right.
But this is one of the really key areas that we need to make sure we bring together so we don't end up with these unintended consequences.
Right. So is it a case that actually what you're working on is really, it's not saying everybody stops eating meat, how do we find that balance between, exactly?
Yeah, well, what we're trying to do for health is a balance of nutrients. So we need to make sure that we're getting all nutrients, and small amounts of meat can provide very important nutrients. We can get everything from a vegetarian diet, but we're also looking at how do we get people to change their diets, and anything that's too extreme, people are not going to take on board. So we need to take sort of small steps, and actually the overall impact would be if we've got a lot of people who reduce their meat intake a little bit as opposed to a very small proportion becoming vegetarian. We need to sort of look at that, but we also just need to keep in mind that there's lots of other things in the diet that potentially aren't unhealthy, so we need to get this balance right.
Excellent. So I know, as you were mentioning, so this is kind of a diet that we have in perhaps high-income countries, developed countries. We hear a lot in the news about some countries developing now and therefore having big changes in their diet. I know you're working on this as well. Can you tell us a little bit how these changes in diets and interact with our environment and the way we live together?
Yes, I mean, in developing countries, what we're seeing is you're going from very traditional diets into sort of moving towards the sorts of diets that we've got in high-income countries, so you've got this shift towards less sustainable, more unhealthy diets, and this is sort of described as a nutrition transition. And this not only comes with big environmental costs because of producing it, but it comes with huge health costs in terms of obesity, diabetes, etc., that we're seeing happening in a lot of countries as income goes up within the country.
And so you're working on finding ways to help people through this transition. Is that what I understand right?
That's what we're trying to do, is look at what is happening here and trying to understand what are the drivers here. There's lots of things we sort of assume are drivers. There's changes in the food environment, so food industry's coming in.
Yeah.
There's sort of an aspiration to be seen eating certain foods because it gives status. So it's really trying to balance how do you do that and not put everybody on the trajectory that we're all in high-income countries, which are going to have huge impacts for health and the environment.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. Thanks a lot for your time.
No problem.
So you touched a little bit on people and actually how the social aspects of eating, and I think it'd be quite good for us for the next section if we're actually going to talk with one of our sociologists who is working on question about how do people, societies change as income progresses. So thanks a lot for your time, and I'll see you later. Don't take my kick. I'll be back for it. All right, so if you guys want to follow me, we're going to go talk to Nadia in a few seconds. So you get at the same time a wonderful behind the scene tour of this fantastic garden that we have in Aberdeen. This garden is used in a number of ways. So we actually we have groups coming in as well, and we're really working hard to introduce gardening intervention as a way to help people through health issues, and it's a great way for the Aberdeen community to come together. It's a wonderful focal point for it. So as I was talking about health, as I was mentioning, we're going to come and talk with Nadia now. So Nadia is a PhD student in sociology, and she's been working on reproductive sociology, and we're going to talk to her right now. Hi Nadia, how are you?
Hello David, how
Good to
are
see you.
Good to see you too.
So you're having fun with the plans?
Yes, I am actually.
So we just had a little tour with a couple of folks talking around the Sustainable Development Goals, and we're just talking with Jenny about these all the transition of the some of the consequences emerging from the transition as income grows in some countries, and I thought it'd be quite useful to talk with you about the question around education. So I know, we know, everybody knows education is extremely important. All come to Aberdeen for this, of course, but it's a very powerful tool. But often or sometimes it can be actually access to education can be impaired for some group of individuals in population. I know you work on this. You want to tell us a little bit more about what you do around these questions?
Okay, sure. So my project is on narratives of menstruation. And of course we know that UNICEF has been discussing the issue of girls' educational outcomes and how they're being impaired by access to sanitary wear. So I'm having a look at this question of whether or not having access to these commodified or disposable sanitary pads, tampons, menstrual cup actually affects educational outcomes, particularly in terms of absenteeism from school. Yeah.
So I know you're in the midst of a project at the moment, of course. Do you have some preliminary finding? Are you finding that it's an issue?
Yes, so I started up an initiative in Zimbabwe which is called Save the Girl Child Movement, and it provides free sanitary wear to girls in the rural areas. And we have found that actually it's not just an issue of access to sanitary wear, it's also about the division of labor within the home. And so in creating, peaceful and inclusive societies where the burden of labor is divided equally between the girl child and the boy child, we find that there is a drive that we need to make families more aware of the fact that it's not just about health. Health is connected to education, and education is also connected to social justice as well.
Yeah, so it sounds like actually you've picked up one strand of a very complex issue, but it's also allowing you to come in, not in the family, but talk to the families and present actually some of the hurdles that girls are facing, which is well beyond what was the kind of the first strand essentially, and really kind of be able to talk about gender equality issues and how do we redress that and move forward.
Absolutely.
That sounds great. Well, thanks a lot for your time. It's amazing, and good luck with your project in Zimbabwe. It sounds like amazing
it's
work.
in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
David.
good to see you.
All
Right.
right.
Good
Good to
see you later.
see you too. Bye.
Bye. All right. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for sticking with us through this video, everyone. We had a fantastic time. We've just picked up 3 individuals. I think Aberdeen is personally one of the reasons why I work here is that it's a very special place, because while we've got these 3 examples, we actually have many different projects, many different people, from music to philosophy to sociology to biology, ecology, medicine, geography, engineering, law, that are working exactly on those problems. How do we ensure that we have a sustainable future? We've been doing this for a long time, and I'm just very proud to be part of this community and help in a little bit I can to move towards these goals. So thanks a lot. I think the one point I take from this is actually twofold. The first one, while we've got 17 clear goals, actually these goals are interconnected. Okay, so we've moved on from the people of the forest, orangutan, all the way to how do we ensure equitability in education access to girls, for girls in Zimbabwe. We've moved through talking about what you eat every day to what happens to a forest, and we moved from understanding families to having to understand nutrition. So all of this is interconnected, and more importantly, not only it's interconnected, but that means that every single little change that you try to bring in your life will actually have really large effects throughout the whole world. So the Sustainable Development Goals are really about all of us, and every single individual can make a big difference. So I urge you to really try to have a good think about what can you do to help us towards the 2030 goals, and take a pledge. Tweet us. So you've got the videos, put a comment, tweet us, and let us know how you're going to change your life. You know, it might be taking the trains of the car, it might be eating 1 or 2 less chocolates, or a little bit less meat, or it might be growing gardens to foster biodiversity where you live. All these little things, just let us know how you do it, and we'll start a discussion on this. Thanks for your time. See you later.